Hello, welcome. I'm gonna chill on here for maybe a minute so that some people can join. Today it's been so long since I've done a live. Hello. It's beautiful to be on here. The last time I did a live was actually here. So anyway, today I want to talk about a little bit of what I've been going through over the past year. So not about what I've been going through, but I just want to share my experiences and share some insight, I guess. So for those of you who do not know me, for any new faces here, my name is Maddie, or Magical Mads. I am a embodiment, energy coach, manifestation abundance coach, transgenerational healing coach. Oh, hold on. This girl is on her babies. Don't sit on them. And I work with spiritual and physical to help you to bridge the worlds between the two, and then also heal any, core wounds that are holding you back from creating the life that you desire. So that's me. And today I kind of want to share a little bit about why I do this work, and a lot of it has to do with where I come from. And so what a better time or place than to do it now, here, when I am visiting my mom for her birthday. This is the first time I've been back to my childhood home in a year and a half since moving to Florida. And it's amazing to see the changes, and then it's also really cool to see all the things that are still the same. So for some background, I left here when I was 22, and the reason being, I had done a lot of traveling in my younger years, and I had been a lot of places, and I had done a lot of things, and it was all these things that I wanted to do, but it was this feeling of there's something still missing. I am doing all these things that I want to do, but it doesn't feel good. The people around me aren't necessarily supporting me in the ways that I wish that they would. And it just was I was seemingly very happy and seemingly very successful in terms of what I wanted to accomplish for my life, and very much in terms of traveling. But I wasn't really happy underneath the surface, and it was all of this expectation to prove that I was happy, and that's kind of how I was showing up on social media as well. So I wanted to start my own business, and I always knew that I wanted to have my own business. I always knew I wanted to work for myself. Once I finished college, I was I really don't want to give my life to someone else in that way. I want to build with myself rather than build for someone else. And so I knew that I wanted to have my own business, but it was the logistics of actually getting there and the mindset and belief work to make that a reality was not there yet. And so I've kind of always been spiritual, pretty much my whole life, and I feel my whole life is kind of a series of awakenings, honestly. My parents got divorced at 4. I've had a lot of really massive experiences that have helped me to shift my perspective on a lot of things. And because of this childhood trauma and all these things and whatnot, I, instead of getting down on myself and feeling bad, I used those to my advantage. I used all of that to my advantage, and I transmuted it into gold, essentially, which is what I'm going to talk about on this live today. But just a little background information. I went to school in High Point University in North Carolina, and then my junior year, I went abroad to Tilburg University for a semester. And when I was abroad, I was drinking a lot. I was very connected to the universe. I was starting to heal my wound with money. I was learning about governmental systems. I was learning about business in school. I was learning about a lot of like what is that called? Like shipping, what is that called? Like supply chain. I was learning about supply chain a lot. So I was learning about like businesses and the ways they do things, ethics and things that are unethical. And obviously like the supply chain has a lot to do with like sex trafficking. So that was kind of like where that really started for me, was in Europe. I started like really realizing, this was the first time I was really away from my parents, my hometown, my mom specifically. And I started really realizing like patterns in the world that were reflected by patterns of thought or beliefs within myself. So I started realizing how limiting I was thinking when it came to business. I only saw business as like a corporate thing rather than like small businesses. And then so following this, I was also drinking a lot at this time, and I was going through a lot of like inner teen like rebellious phase, because it was like, you have to do this and you have to be this and you have to get really good grades and go to school so you can do all these things. And I had done all that, and I was doing all the things that they said that I had to do, and I was still unhappy. And I was just like, what, like, there has to be more to life than this, you know? Like, there has to be more than just this, like, constant loop of, like, okay, I accomplished this thing, now I have something else to accomplish. Okay, I do this thing, now I have to do something else. Like, there was no room for satisfaction. There was no room for rest. There was no room for, it was just go, 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 go. And so during this experience, I had a really traumatic incident happen where I actually ended up getting pregnant. And when I came back to the States, I did not carry the baby to term, obviously, for a variety of reasons. One of the main reasons being that, one, I was not fit to be a mother, and two, I was very concerned about my alcohol consumption in terms of the baby, so I didn't want it to create like any issues. And then also I wanted to, so the reason that I'm bringing this up is because I had a wake-up call when I was in the Netherlands, when it was like, I think it was like November. This happened in December. I think it was like October, November, and I had a wake-up call. I was sitting in front of a mirror, and I was looking at myself, and I was doing some mirror work, and I was just like, I just smoked a joint, and I was looking at myself in the mirror, and I was like, I don't want to be this person. Why am I being this person? This is exactly what I told myself I didn't want to be like. Why am I doing this? And that was the moment that it was shown to me what my life was going to look like if I didn't change my actions and my thoughts and my behaviors in that moment. And so it became like this kind of like daunting thing over my head, and then it actually manifested in my reality as a baby. So, and a baby that I had to let go of, which is even more like traumatic. But so after that entire experience, I come home, I have to go back to school. I have to do all these things. I have to be this person. I have to be that same person that I was before when I was striving to make myself feel successful. Except now I didn't have any motivation for life. I literally felt so run down. I felt so uncomfortable with the way that I was showing up in my life, and it was like I knew I needed to make these changes, but it was so overwhelming to actually make these changes, to actually like fully embody the change and not go back to those past habits or patterns. And a lot of that was like having sex with random people, or having sex out of like loneliness, or being afraid of being alone. And I had to get really comfortable with being alone, because no one could be in my head or understand what I had gone through after that experience. No matter how many times I tried to talk about it, it was just so deeply rooted within me. And so this experience actually triggered so many things in terms of generational healing. Because not only did my womb get entirely wiped out from some crazy drugs, I didn't tell anyone that this was happening to me. So no one knew, and I was still going out and I was still hanging out with my friends, and they were all drinking and smoking, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna stay sober, blah, blah, blah. And I was still like living in this reality that I wasn't really aligned with, and I knew I wasn't aligned with it, but it was like, how do I actually make these changes? And why is it hard for me to make these changes? Like, why is this so deeply rooted within me? And so this caused me to start asking like a shit ton of questions about myself, about my family lineage, about everything, because I was just like, there has to be a reason, especially because I was told that this was going to happen to me before it happened. Like it was like manifestation for something that I didn't want. And it was like, because of my fear of it happening again, even though it had never happened to me before, my fear of it happening is what actually created it. And what's really crazy is when I was younger, when I was like a little baby, I remember thinking like, I can't have kids. Like, I'm not going to be able to have kids. Like, having kids is not an option for me. Or, like, I don't ever see myself having a baby. Like, I see the baby dying. Like, I had visions of a baby dying in my womb. So anyway, the point of me sharing this is because I want to explain or showcase how deeply ingrained these beliefs, these patterns, these traumas were within me. And the reason that they were so deeply ingrained is because this trauma spans across multiple generations. And there's a lot of shame, or there was a lot of shame for one of the generations, and then another of the generation actually cleared that shame and showed up differently and was strong and firm in her decision. And me, I felt both. I felt all of that, and it was like a holy trinity. Like, sometimes in life, you can't really explain why things are happening, but there's always a root cause. There's always an option to find out. It's just you have to continue asking these questions. So that's what I kept doing. I kept asking all these questions about myself, about my family, about my lineage. I wanted to know where I was from. I wanted to know what things happened. I wanted to know all the bad stuff. I didn't care. I didn't care about the good stuff, honestly. I wanted to know the juicy details that no one wanted to talk about. I wanted to go into the depths. I wanted to go into the shadows. And because I was willing and able to do that work, I got to heal generations of shame, of constant fear, of recreating a past pattern that doesn't serve you. I got to heal my womb. I got to heal my mother wound. I got to heal the sister wound. I got to heal the father wound. I got to create the family that I always wanted from when I was a little girl in my reality, in my mind, because of how willing I was able to go into the shadows and rework and rewrite all of those beliefs, ideas, traumas, habits, feelings, fears, so that I could have more stability in my life, so that I could be conscious of my decisions, so that I could listen more clearly to my intuition, so that I would follow my gut impulses, so that I could, break out of this cycle of lack and move into a cycle where I get to have whatever I want, regardless of somebody else and what their opinion is. I get to have whatever I want. And that experience alone in itself helped me to realize that no matter what, you have to put yourself first. You have to put yourself first. And a lot of family dynamics and family systems focus on the whole. And in reality, the key to curating a healthy whole is taking care of the individual parts, is making sure that all of the individual parts are oiled up, are working correctly, are moving in the direction of their desires. And when you take a second to look at all the parts, So the reason that this was such a transcendental experience for me, such a massive shift, is because I was not willing or able to go into the depths. I was avoiding it. I was literally avoiding it, even though I knew it was what I was supposed to do. So because I was avoiding it, it was thrown right in my face. Because you cannot avoid what's meant for you. And because I wasn't able to fully stand up for myself because of the way that my parents modeled standing up for themselves, because of the self-esteem that is present, like was present in my family, like I wasn't able to stand up for myself in those ways. And from going into the depths, from actually looking at all of the shit that I didn't want to look at, I found myself being able to fully understand not only myself, but the people around me, the people on the street, the random strangers. It helped me have more compassion for the life that I was living, for the people in my reality, regardless if I knew them, regardless if they were... Watch out, you don't want to hurt your babies. Regardless if they were serving me or not serving me. Because, like, honestly, it's not, like, everything is alignment. Everything for you is alignment. And that is one of the biggest takeaways of this experience for me, was that every single part of this was in alignment with my path and my purpose for this lifetime. And because I was able to do this work on myself, it spans across an entire lineage. I have healed my entire bloodline because that was my intention. Because that is what I set out to do. And once I realized, like, this was a pattern, once I realized that this was something that kept coming up in our family, I was determined to make sure that I would be the last person that ever had to experience something so traumatic. And I wanted to bring peace to my lineage, for them to know that all of those experiences that they had were not bad. All of those things that they experienced that they felt so shitty about, they were not bad. They were simply moving them in the direction of where the world is to go, where the whole is to move towards. And since their experiences, there have been more cooperative components that have placed these things into our lives so that we can learn from them, so we can grow from them, so that we can understand death is not an end, so that we can feel okay about watching our loved ones pass on, so that we can feel okay with looking death in the face, because death is not a scary thing. Death is part of life. And that is one of the most key spiritual tools. Understanding and embodying that is one of the most key spiritual tools to fully actualize a life that you really desire here and now. Because if not, you're going to be running around trying to protect yourself, make sure you feel safe, all of these things. But if you throw that out of the window, that you're even unsafe, if you just throw it out of the window that you could ever be hurt, that death could ever really kill you, you can move mountains with your love and your embodiment for the world. One of the first spiritual truths I learned was that death is not an end. Because I had a lot of people who had a lot of death energy in my life, and I had a lot of deaths growing up, so it was one of the first tools that I put in my tool belt, and that alone would be enough to permeate the understanding of anyone in my lineage. But the thing is, it's not about, like, just your lineage, Like, transgenerational healing is not for one bloodline. Transgenerational healing happens when you do the work on every single aspect of yourself. That means inner child, teenager, current embodiment, past embodiment, any like version of yourself that you can pinpoint. When you learn to love and accept those versions of yourself, they integrate into the whole. So when you do this work on yourself, it integrates into the whole, and it will be reflected to you, regardless if it's through family, friends, your work environment, any sort of environment that you're ever in. This healing work amplifies not only your power, but the power of the world, the power of freedom, the power of love, the power of presence, the power of peace. And it's not your responsibility, like it's not your fault. It's not your fault that these things happen. It's not your fault that there are certain cards that you were dealt. It's not your fault that you have a large mission in this world, but it is your responsibility to own up to those wants and desires. It's your responsibility to choose a different path. It's your responsibility to understand this isn't serving me and to look somewhere else. Or it's your responsibility to learn to speak to yourself different, to show up differently. It's your responsibility because it's your life. And even though lives came before your lives, this is your life here and now, and you hold all the power. You hold all of it. Because you are an embodiment of every single person who came before you. And when you heal those versions of yourself that you can pinpoint, the people around you feel empowered to take action towards healing the parts of themselves that they're ignoring. So what prompted me on this rant? Well, this is my first time being back in Pennsylvania for a year and a half. I moved to Florida after a really bad breakup and a toxic relationship that really emulated the relationship of my parents when I was growing up. And this was another pattern that I noticed, and I honestly was like, I'm fucking sick of the patterns. I'm sick of repeating this shit. And I want to learn the lessons fully so that I can move on, so that I can go forward with my life, so that I can live the life that I want to live, so that I can have the business I want to have, so that I can show up in the ways that I want to show up. And I had to like really look at those patterns. I had to understand those patterns and be like, well, where did this come from? Like, what version of me is acting this out? And how can I create change here? And so going to Florida was like my way of kind of breaking free in a sense, in that I decided that that was going to be the pattern breaker. Like, I was going to Florida because I needed space so that I could heal all of this and move forward with my life. And so I did, and I did a lot of work, a lot of meditation, a lot of openness, willingness to learn about myself. A lot of questions were asked, and like, this is one key thing. If you ever want an answer to something, all you have to do is ask yourself and detach from needing an answer right away, and the answer will come to you. So I do that all the time. I do that literally all the time. That's like how I do most of my healing work. And I had already kind of been on this healing journey a little bit before moving to Florida. I was like in spiritual communities, going to spiritual retreats, kind of diving deeper into like inner child wounds, and then also just like transgenerational wounding, core wounds, mother wounds, things that come up. And a lot of it had to do with my relationship with the masculine, actually. And so that's where I started. And I just started, and I just kept going, and I kept going, and I kept going. And then it came to a point where it was like, I feel at peace. And I don't feel like I need to keep going with this. I don't feel like I need to keep digging deeper. I feel like I'm at the bottom, and I feel like I can come back up now. And so I did. And I went all the way to the bottom of Florida, and I came all the way back up here. And here I am a year and a half later, and I just saw my grandma, who is in a nursing home. And I saw her for the first time yesterday in probably closer to over 2 years. And I cried a lot. And the first thing that she said to me when I saw her was, "I'm sorry." And she just kept saying, like, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And I just looked at her and I was like, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault." And I got to show her the embodied version of me. The true version of me. The version of me that I was afraid to share for so many years. Because of fear of judgment. When in reality, I wasn't afraid of their judgment. They were afraid of judgment themselves. And I was just reflecting that to them. And when we bring acceptance, total, translucent acceptance into our relationships, our willingness and our capacity for contrast increases. And I always knew that I had a major purpose in my life. Ever since my parents got divorced when I was 4. I remember being at the divorce meeting and the guidance counselor tried to give me a book about alligators, an alligator crocodile family. And he gave it to me, and I was like, I don't want to read this. This is irrelevant to me. I know that this is happening for a reason. I'm completely okay with it. Blah, 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 blah. And because that version of me had to grow up so fast and identify with the fact that I was going to do something with this energy, I was going to use this to my advantage, it helped me to move out of the victim state and into an action-taking state, an aligned action-taking state. And through the work that I have done over the past year, I have seen so many past lives, year and a half, 2 years. I've seen so many past lives. I've healed things that I didn't even know were bothering me. For the longest time, I had this weight when I was living here before. I had this weight on my shoulders, and I just couldn't get it off. And I would always ask my guides, help me to release this pain, release this weight from my shoulders, help me to release all of this. And I don't have pain anymore. I mean, you feel pain sometimes. But, where I had pain in my shoulder, it was, excruciating pain. Sometimes I couldn't even carry stuff. I would wake up in the morning, kink in my neck, literally couldn't do shit. I don't feel any of that anymore. And when I first went to Florida, I had, a really long conversation with myself. I sat on the couch in my Airbnb, and I had this long-ass conversation with myself, which I'm gonna honestly probably do a whole nother live about. But I had this conversation with myself, and it was so long, and it was just freedom. It was literally just me telling myself how I really felt, and allowing myself to express my emotions, allowing myself to not have to be the bigger person, allowing myself to just let my emotions out. Because I never had the opportunity to do that as a little girl. I had to suppress it. I had to be the strong person. But I don't have to be that strong person for anyone except myself anymore. I don't have to be anything for anyone. I get to just be who the fuck I want to be. And that's what this experience has taught me. That's where this journey has brought me. To the other side of a tunnel where I actually feel like I'm walking into the light. Like I'm not going through the shadows anymore. Like the shadows are still there, but I'm no longer in them. Because now I'm embodying the light. Because I've done the work. Because I've felt the feelings. Because I've allowed myself to go there. I've allowed myself to feel the things that don't feel good. And I've held space for myself while I feel those things. And now that I've done all of this work for myself, I want to share this work with the rest of the world, because everyone deserves to have a life that they feel good in, that they feel embodied in living, that they feel like they're giving something to the world. Everyone should be able to feel peace in who they are right now. Regardless of how much baggage you're carrying with you, regardless of how many suitcases you got, regardless if you got 3 trunks in the garage, okay? You get to be how you are because you are. I am because I am. I am that I am. You get to decide what you want to be. But in order to decide what you want to be, you have to first figure out where you are and where you're starting so that you can take appropriate action steps towards those goals. And sometimes it's really hard to identify where you're at unless it's thrown right in your face. And I don't want to see people have things thrown in their face like that. I don't want people to have crazy experiences. I want people to notice these subtle little things, and I want them to seek out help, and those are the people that I want to help. Those are the people that I want to guide on this journey. Those are the people that are going to see the best results from the work that I do. The people that are already in it, and they don't know where to go from here. So if this sounds like you, my DMs are always open for a conversation, whether it's regarding a session or not. My DMs are always open for a conversation. I want you to know that there is hope. Even if you don't feel it, the lack of hope is a sign that there is hope. And because you can go so low, you are also capable of reaching that same level in terms of height. You get to decide the way your energy is channeled. You get to decide the boundaries and the standards for your life. And when you're ready to set those standards and set those boundaries and to embody them, and when you're ready to work alongside someone who already does this work so naturally and is able to cultivate and hold a space for you to do this work so naturally, and to guide you and to be there for you as you traverse the realm of the shadows, as you traverse the realm of the unconscious and subconscious minds. I am here for you. I am here for you, and you know where to find me. So, I just want to see. Thanks for everyone who joined. There were so many people. Thanks to everyone who joined. I love you guys so much. I'm sending you love as well, sister. I am looking forward to coming back north soon. I have a feeling I'm gonna be doing like some gathering situations, so stay tuned for that. I'm really excited for this new chapter. I feel really, really good about where life is taking me, and I feel really, really good about my past as well. And because I feel so strong about all of those things, I just know that that strength is going to bleed over into every area of my life. And I'm excited to see the ways in which we can all grow together. So, thanks for joining today. I will be doing more of these, definitely, so stay tuned. I love you so much, and feel free to DM me with any questions. Specifically, if you're interested in generational healing, I highly recommend booking an inner child audit with me, because a lot of the time our inner child is the portal to generational healing. So I have some information on that on my website, or you can just DM me and I'll send the deets over to you. So, okay. Sending you so much love.